Hey y'all, we missed you guys.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back.
We missed y'all so much that we are coming back with a special true crime episode because we're true crime girlies.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think oftentimes we would be like listening to an episode or texting each other like, "Did you hear that?" We'd be talking about it, from a personal and like from a therapist standpoint. So we figured we would come with a bang. And it's also something that's special to our field too.
Absolutely.
A lot of us don't touch this particular topic because of how
this.
How it all went down.
Yeah, absolutely.
We watched I Love You Now Die.
Yes.
Because I think the autobiography of Michelle Carter came out after, right?
The movie it was a TV series.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, it was on Hulu.
Okay. But we watched I Love You Now Die, a documentary about Michelle Carter and Conrad
Roy.
Conrad Henry Roy III was born September 12th, 1995 in New Bedford, Massachusetts. That's quite a place to be born. But there was no question. They showed videos of him talking about being anxious in social settings and battling with depression.
And I think wanting to be more in the social scene and friends and
They also didn't talk much about his friends either.
Well, I wish that, and I mean, like they, for all intents and purposes, they were still considered minors. But I wish we had gotten a little more like background because we know that his parents were divorced.
Yes, and they divorced when he was in high school.
Right, which is a vulnerable time.
Right, and they talked about that. They kind of like flew by that a little bit. Yeah, I peeped that.
Yeah, so I wish and again, we aren't entitled to anybody's information. Let's put that out there. And it would, I think, have been nice to learn a little more about him. Like, I know he wanted to do boating. He got like his license.
Yeah, the what is it? There's the certificate for the boating because he worked with the family business, which is Tucker Roy Marine Towing and Salvage. What is marine towing? Do they tow boats?
I think so. I think marine towing. Let's look it up because
I've never seen a boat towed.
Well, you've seen one sink. Things that stop or sink need towing. Let's see. You're right. Let's see. Marine towing. Literally.
Oh yeah, the captain's license. Yeah.
It says marine towing involves using specialized vessels, often called tugboats, to assist in moving or guiding other watercraft.
Oh, tugboats. I've heard of tugboats.
See?
Okay.
All right.
There we go. Okay. So what I thought was interesting too, because when the grandfather was on TV, I was like, Gilligan's Island.
Really?
You got the skipper and the captain. That's what. Yeah, my notes is full of stuff like that. It's just I had to make light of such a dark situation.
But that's what I'm saying. I wish we had gotten a little more about family history, what he enjoyed to do.
Yeah.
Again, we aren't entitled to anybody's information. But they did put the documentary out.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and they were apart. But that's pretty much. I do know that he graduated from high school with honors with a 3.88 GPA, and he had gotten into Fitchburg State University to study business, but he had decided not to go.
Okay.
Shortly after being accepted, which for me was kind of, I wouldn't say like a red flag, but like a yellow flag.
Well, yeah. like we've talked about like the breakdown of depression before, and for somebody who, I'm not saying people can't change their minds, but like if you're
history.
Well, right, and we'll get more into its history, but with, you know, you're applying, I can't say it's excited, you're applying, ready to move forward, and then you're like, that's okay.
Right.
I think I would have been like, hey,
what's going on?
What you doing?
Okay. Not much. Now, I'll be honest with you. Most of the things that I like researched for Michelle Carter had to do with this specific event.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing before. The only thing I got was she was born in 1997 in Plainville, Massachusetts.
So, in the documentary, they say that she was really smart. I think she played softball
or baseball, one of them.
And she liked Glee. But I think they purposely highlighted that in the case. But we really didn't get tons of information about, like, you know. But I guess that's our profession coming out, where we want to know family history. We're like, okay, so tell me about your grandma's grandma and your
and this will come out later because I wrote it all in my notes. But it was a red flag for me that the family was so tight-lipped about some things, especially how the documentary went.
Well, her parents weren't even, and they have the right to decline, but
her parent and his parent, his family. Okay, yeah.
All right.
So when it first came on, when the documentary came on, I was like, red quilt. They only met 5 times.
Well, yeah, and like became infatuated like quickly. I guess it speaks to that time
And also age.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they were I love you, over the moon. Name your kid after me. Like it went into it. It was pretty intense I think that would be intense for adults.
Yeah. The emails, text messages, and phone calls. So yeah, off the bat, it was like only 5 times. And like every time they would try to meet, something would come up.
Yes, which is like, so what y'all guts was like. The intuition was like, maybe not.
I don't know what it is, because they also talked about, because he brought up you being my Juliet.
Yes.
And Romeo and Juliet.
Yes. I think that's when Nancy Grace was rolling. And
I wrote in my notes, go away. When I saw her face, go away, Nancy Grace. That's what I wrote.
Because I think they called it the Romeo and Juliet case, which I think is insensitive.
It is, because it is.
Yeah.
It is. But I also wonder, their guts may have been going off, but also does it speak to how they were socially?
Yeah, because I think that, and I know we're jumping around, guys, they talked about her, like, social support history and her feeling like she didn't really have friends and struggling to, like, maintain friends, and how people talked about her as well.
Saying she was needy.
And sent, like, tons of text messages. But, yeah, I think, like, socially, there was something there. Yeah, there was something there. So, like, it speaks to the times of, the 2000s, where texting, social media is, like, a thing.
Her text message. So just to give context, her text messages to her friend, to the people she went to school with, because they were very clear, like, we're not her friends.
Right. I'm not available.
Were like, are you mad at me? Can we be friends? Can we hang out? And she would like double and triple text until someone responded. It reminded me of, like, She's All That. Like that whole dynamic of wanting to be
in the in crowd.
Yeah, in the in crowd. And because she played softball with a lot of these people, she was seeking that connection. Because even the pictures looked a little awkward. Like she looked like she ran up and like, oh, wait for me.
Yeah.
And invited.
Yeah. I don't think she was invited.
I don't think she was either.
I don't think she was invited.
But when she was in crisis,
they responded.
When they would respond. Right. And so it created this dynamic of, if I'm honest and vulnerable, even if it's too much for other people, no one sees that. But if I need help or something's going on, then they will. And I think the prosecution ran with that.
Yeah, but I think that like what they're talking about is that like sometimes there are people, children and adults, where attention is attention.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's positive attention or negative attention. And
yeah,
she was able to be like, I'm in crisis or this thing is happening. People were able to be there at her beck and call.
Yeah.
But it's just not a sustainable place to live in.
It's not, and we see why.
Well, yeah.
Because these two were in a situationship. Textship. They was talking every day.
I'm trying to find the words because I think at that point in time is really when that part of like social media like blossomed, where people were in these like think about catfish, right?
Yeah.
Like where those things really started to blossom, and we would get the background where they would be talking for like years and never see each other, never hear each other's voice, but they would
you weren't a part of that world, were you?
Which world?
That world.
The catfish
and
world?
Being in the chat rooms and
oh no. You know, I had my grandmother, she said because she didn't understand, right? So what she said is, after a certain point in time, the only thing that's open
yeah,
are liquor stores and legs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
so there would be no reason for me to be in anybody's chat room ever. But then if it was like at night, what you doing?
So I will say this, and this ain't where I'm at right now, so no judgment. But that was me.
Okay.
Like, I had friends, and I was never the one to put myself out there like she did in text. Mm-hmm. But I struggled with depression and anxiety, and I didn't hang around a lot of people, and so I was really awkward. So, like, I was in, like, the chat rooms, like the WWE chat rooms.
But I mean, think about what the benefits, think about the purpose that it serves. You got validation, you got people to talk to, and it's like you created your own community.
And I will say, like, if you're in that space, because you do feel connected, and you start to create this reality. Mm-hmm. And when you go online, you're creating this persona of who you want to be.
Right.
And like, nobody can tell you, bitch, no, that's not what it is, because nobody knows and nobody knows you.
Right.
And that was in the time when you had to scan pictures in, so you was free, bitch.
It was
like, nobody was like, take a picture with a sign, because you had to go through all that work. You had to go to the library, use the scanner, upload it, so I could see how she could get like engulfed in it. Yeah. But I think there was buffers that were missing.
Well, yes, because that's also around the time where, because we're talking about 2000 what? 13?
19? No,
it wasn't 19. Mm-hmm. I don't think so.
No, I'm making stuff up.
Okay. Yep. That was around the time where, so 2016. Well, she was convicted in 2016.
So it was 2014.
2014. So that was the time where, again, social media was like not shiny and new, but it could do things.
Yeah.
Phones
it was advancing.
Phones had certain capabilities.
Yeah, because I think Facebook, you could get online on your phone around like 2011.
Okay. Yep.
But I don't think Facebook had an app then.
You had to like.
Yeah. So, but you were starting to do more things on your phone.
Yeah. So it was that because they were sending pictures and stuff back and forth. Did I make that part up? Oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, maybe I made that up.
No. So, they're talking, and it's very intense. And I will say that when the police officers, right, the detectives, came on the scene.
Uh-oh. I'm nervous.
I wrote, they got their suits specifically for this documentary.
Oh no!
When they came, did you see how they came walking in on that camera? I was like, bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? Like, they have been waiting their whole lives for that moment.
He was like, I'm in there. Captain, I'm in there.
Yo, so it was, they were Fairhaven detectives, Scott Gordon and Glenn Cudmore.
And just, we want to ask for forgiveness if we are butchering any names. We are intelligent. Sometimes we mess up people's names. So forgive us. Right? Give us a little bit of grace.
So my emotions were up and down. Yeah. Because when they started, right, they were like, we found her phone. And when we were reading the text messages, we were like, what would make or cause an 18-year-old boy commit suicide? And then they were like, we saw the messages.
As if there aren't
so many factors.
I mean,
so I'm like, so when they started showing the text messages, I was like, oh shit, that was fucked up. I can't believe she did that. And they were like, they were like, she killed him. She caused his death.
And I think that there was no, so how the documentary put it, right? Because we weren't there. But they immediately, like, that was the sole cause. Right. And that started to make things real gray, in my opinion, because, okay, but wait a minute. Hold on.
Wait, backing on up.
So,
you know what moment that was for me?
Uh-oh.
Immediately, and I'm not coming for Mom. I'm not. But it was something about her face.
Oh, she was pissed.
It was something about her face. She was pissed. She was hurt. But there was something she was not saying. And I felt that. As soon as I said, what?
Yeah.
And I think for me, and I really want to preface this by saying I know this is sensitive and,
right,
but because it's sensitive does not mean that we are not going to state what is going on.
Right, the facts.
The facts. And there was, for the family, and I don't know if this is the way that they edited the documentary, but even still, there was no mention of the struggles.
No.
That he was having.
No, I went down a rabbit hole on Reddit. It was like, right, because sometimes I do that, right? Not saying that it's the most reliable source. However, I did a lot of research and read a lot of things, and I went down a Reddit rabbit hole. Yes, I did. And there is so much more that, because his parents, like you said, were divorced when he was in high school. And if you notice, like, Dad's interviews were pretty brief.
And his eyes were dancing.
Right? So, like, I don't know if they were cutting his, I don't know. We don't know how it was edited in real life. No. But it sounds like, I think it was a lot happening.
Yes.
And this poor baby was
suffering.
Yeah.
Because they did mention that after the divorce, he was saying his memory was leaving. He was feeling overwhelmed. And so I'm like, okay, all right. So how are we addressing that? They did say they took him to specialist medical doctors and psychiatrists. And sometimes people say psychiatrists and don't, and they mean therapists, or they mean both.
Right.
And then other times people take people to a psychiatrist and forget that the therapist is there in between the psychiatrist visits.
Yeah, and sometimes some things need to be, like medication is just a piece.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes things have to be talked about and worked through and validated and normalized. And when we're talking about a kid and he's having memory loss, it's like, okay, wait, there was this event that, yeah. And you know, what we know about, you know, stress disorders and
also what it's like to acclimate yourself to two separate households when it was one. And was there...
what was happening in the household?
What was happening in the household when they was together and separated? Was one parent a buffer? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, and again, it's not our business. However, when we put our clinician hats on, I want to know what's happening. I want to know whose house you're going to. I want to know, does mom have a new person? Does dad have a new person? When they got these new people, are there new kids?
Yes.
Where's the dog? Is there a cat? Where's the hamster?
Who took the dog?
Well, right. You know, like I want to know. I want to know what his room
because
looks
all
like.
of these make up the picture.
Right.
And if one piece is missing, the picture start looking a little funny.
Yeah.
Like, I can't make this out.
I would be so curious to see what his room look like.
You know what? I would too.
I want to see what does under your bed look like? What's your closet look like? I would be like, ooh.
What does your closet look like?
Mm-hmm.
Because you know, sometimes my closet look like mine.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Same.
And I know, it do.
Yeah.
This is the quote from one of the detectives when they were talking about when they went to the school to interview Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
He said if it wasn't for her, he'd be alive today.
And I just feel like you can't make that. We don't know. We don't know.
And I said that. I was a little too loud because I didn't want to wake the baby up. But I was like, how do we know that?
Yeah. We don't know. How
do we know that? So that was a lot. But in February 5th of 2015, she was officially charged with
involuntary manslaughter. Yeah.
And that was game on.
Mm-hmm.
They were shocked about the messages.
And rightfully so.
Yeah. They were
intense.
They were intense. They were
on
both sides. Because we'll get to that because the defense, and even though he stretched it a little bit with that diagnosis, he was talking about both.
Right. It wasn't just
you know what I'm saying? It wasn't just her and it wasn't just him. He was talking about both in the dynamics. And seeing some of his text messages, I was like...
Yeah, it was... I mean, I think about... I don't know if you want to get into this now that he had previous hospitalizations or...
We can. This shit is our show. We do it.
Who you do
what you want when you popping.
Right. Who gonna check us, boo? So he... Conrad had multiple, I think 3, yeah.
Was it 3 or 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll stick with that.
Hospitalizations, and suicide attempts. And he, one of the times he tried to OD, I think on Tylenol. And some of his messages to Michelle were like, would you even care if I was alive, or, you know, and he was.
And her response kind of threw me. I'm like, did she not know?
So, and then that's the other thing, right? So the documentary is pulling tags and inserting them in at certain points in times with the music playing in the background, and sometimes, So, like, we don't know what was before it. We don't know what was after it. We don't know the previous conversation, like the day before. Like, we don't have that information. But it was as if they hadn't spoken. And then, boom, then they go into it.
Yes. And so I think that's when they finally came out that he had attempts before, I was like, well, where the fuck was this at?
Right, where it was, because this is a history. This is showing, you know,
and the journals.
Right, because he had written several,
and if there was a therapist in play, right?
You're like, all right, boom.
Because like that's you know, that's what we have education for. We have a keen eye for some things. And if the parents are like, hey, you know, something's going on, like, that's something that we can observe and look for.
Right.
But if you're only taking psychotropic medications, and I don't know for sure, I'm just, my clinical gut, I don't think that he necessarily had a safe space to talk about his real feelings.
No.
And I'm saying that because, like I said, I don't know for sure, but I'm only saying that with how the family talked about him.
Right.
And how the blame is like strictly just went to Michelle. Yeah. Because if it was a safe space, a lot of times what a safe space looks like is, my son was struggling. Right. And there were attempts, and we were working on this, that, and the third, and then here this bitch came,
talking about
doing all this shit. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yes, I agree with that completely. It was almost as if he was talked about separately, like they tried to separate him from the diagnosis and from things that had happened. Right. And like I wanna be very clear. This is a painful, tragic, you know, situation. This is awful. And sometimes the hard truth is that you have a kid, I'm just speaking, you know, in general, you have a kid who is struggling with depression and anxiety and, you know, struggling with suicidal ideations. And it's very scary. Right. It's scary, it's overwhelming, and sometimes you don't know what to do. That's okay, you know? But the way that they kind of talked about it was definitely to place blame and to separate. And we know that, like, sometimes people do that because that's how they're grieving, that's how they're working through it. And multiple things can be true at the same time. Yeah.
It is. It's difficult, and as a parent, it's difficult. And then on top of that too, I want to be fair. You know, teenagers don't really. Sometimes you can be like, look, the neon sign can be like, it's safe here, and they be like,
fuck you. Yeah, like, I'm not. You don't know what you're talking about. You never lived life before. You're like, but I did.
I'm still living it.
I'm still. But it's unfortunate. Yeah. I also think that it's very hard to be a teenager now.
It was hard when we was coming up, but it's real hard now.
They have added, it was very hard. I want to, yes. They have added factors, right? There are things that certain generations like have, right? And they have access to certain things that generations didn't have access to.
Yeah. I also went the month before the incident, June 13th. He did the video. Yes. And I wrote, he is definitely in pain and suffering. And he said he was overwhelmed with life and he wanted to be more proactive and contribute. And I was like, damn, I had this like that. Because and what he said was, he was like, it's a lot. I want to be more confident. This is controlling me, and it's a lot to just have to be happy all the time. And I was like, well, who the fuck said that?
Well, so that's why I'm like, there's so much that. Right. And where the other videos at?
Because you know that wasn't the only one.
That was not the only
video.
You know
that wasn't the only one. If he had a journal, he had a vlog.
Yeah.
He had a vlog.
And again, we're not entitled to this young man's information. And where the rest of the videos at?
So you go down, right, in my notes, and it say, Mom wished she knew and saw more signs. And so I want to pause here because as therapists now, I don't specialize in suicidal ideation. I do not. I do not. But there are some signs, and you have to be very careful because everybody is different.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. And I think it's important to, when you really know your children, if they're suffering like that, I would rather you be annoying to them and get on their nerves than you just be like, well, is that any little deviation from their normal pattern? Clock it.
In their face.
Clock it.
Yeah.
Clock it.
Yeah.
Clock it. Even, I would even go so far as to say, even if they don't have a history of ideation.
I mean, so when we talk about ideation, I don't think that it's as black and white as people try to make it seem. And sometimes certain thoughts or feelings come up that I would consider an ideation, you know? And it could be passive, it could be, but like, yeah.
Passive, active is two different things. I have that conversation with the people I support all the time. Especially when they're like, I don't know if I need to tell you. And I'm like, well,
go ahead.
I think tell me, because this is something that we're not talking about because everybody is so afraid. And this documentary is why everybody's so fucking afraid to talk about it.
And I want to be clear, talking about suicide and suicidal ideations does not cause someone to either harm themselves or to die by suicide. I want to be very clear about that. I think you can have conversations because it's increasingly becoming more and more common. You know, we'll put some statistics in the notes, but it's become more and more common, and people are afraid to talk about it. It's not a comfortable conversation.
It's not.
No one is rushing up to the base to be like, all right, but and it's still a conversation that needs to be had. Right. And not one shoe doesn't fit all. Is that the saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, from little Jackie over here, there may be certain things that are coming up versus little Tommy, you know, like, but that's why it's important to talk about it. Get some support, get some clinical opinions, you know.
Yeah. And
start the process that way versus being terrified and not moving. You can be terrified and move.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you can be shaking like shit and still
and still do it. Move with the fear. Move with the fear. I also think it's important to note that Massachusetts, like we were talking about before, is one of 11 states that does not have any specific laws around assisting with suicide.
Yes.
Which is why this case was so big and why it was like, okay, so what are we going to do? We don't know what to do because
this is the first.
So at what was it? It was like 5 judges. What was that? They were trying to figure out what to charge them with.
I think they were bringing it. Look, we lying. Give us a second. Right, this is where we were supposed to phone in legal, okay? We have people in our families that could be like, well,
yeah.
But I think they were trying to decide if there would be legal cause to move forward with the charge. But let me find the correct
time, because I wrote it down here. Because the judge was not here for the shit
at all. I
was like, oh, wait a minute. See, this is why I ain't a lawyer, because but yeah, the judge was just not, he was firing back. He was asking questions. I did not write the judge's name down though. But yeah, he was not here for it.
If we have attorneys and or lawyers listening, they probably screaming at us right now, like, it's called da 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 da. We need y'all. So a judicial panel is a set of judges who sit together to hear a cause of action, most frequently an appeal from a ruling of a trial.
Okay.
They're used to. We'll get back to y'all.
Yeah, we'll put them in the show notes. But the judge was not here for the shit. So nonetheless, we going to trial because it was upheld. But I put like pause. I had to pause and I kept rewinding. So a defense attorney, Bob McGovern.
I think that's
McGovern. So this is really important, and I think this is important to highlight. That's why I put him on that. He said that the defense was very smart to, at the last hour, switch from a jury of the peers to a what is it? A judge trial? A judge trial. So he talked on emotion versus law. So, and this is one of the things that I talked to my cousin about. That's a lawyer. Go Howard Law. So she was saying that if you have jury duty, especially if you are Black, brown, and indigenous, go. Especially if you have any awareness of the law and how it works. Because a lot of people are not educated in the law and how it works. And he said the jury of your peers is based off emotions.
Right.
So however, that is the burden of proof for the lawyers to sway the jury.
Right.
But if you do a judge or a bench trial, is that a bench trial? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you choose to go with the judge is going by the law because the judge knows the law.
Yep.
And so they were saying that was really important, and rightfully so, because when they was doing like the walk up of people, and what they said, people were going off. Parking lot grandma.
Oh my goodness! How did they keep running?
How do you know who I was talking about?
Because it's like they kept finding that lady. Ma'am.
Yo.
They kept finding this young lady.
Parking lot grandma was not here for the bullshit. You hear me?
She was like, oh, I think it's awful. I was like, oh man.
She need to go to jail.
Right.
She called her evil. But I think that is what they were afraid of. And I was like, when he explained it, I was like, you know what?
It was very indicative of
I think that was smart.
Well, yeah, I do too.
I liked his attorney. I mean, damn, I liked her attorney.
Yes.
Bob Queen, she kind of made me tight a little bit. That was the prosecutor. Damn, what was her name? Yeah, it's all I got is Bob Queen. I'm sorry, that's all I got.
Yeah, but he spoke in the documentary more often. Her attorney, like he was very clear. He was very here are my concerns.
Yes. And it wasn't rooted in as much emotion as I felt like the prosecution was. Well,
right, and I think that's why I was feeling like a way about their attorney because some of the things she was saying, I was like, wow, that's what you came up with.
That's what she came up with. Yep, both of them. Yep, yep. So, but this is what I did. This is what I thought was really ruthless. The texting family members after.
Well, okay. So, okay. All right. I'm sorry. I got a little hyped.
But I think you might be hyped the same way I was. The way the documentary goes is like, when she was like, did you find them? There were moments where they talk about how he was saying, I'm going to do it today, and then not talk to her. And then the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. She reached out to somebody asking, I haven't heard from da-da-da-da-da.
And that was missing from the prosecution. Yeah. Right. Because it was multiple times where he was like, I'm going to do it tonight. And then he wouldn't do it, not say anything to her for the rest of the night, and then the next day pop up.
Right. Or she would be, I remember one scene where she was like begging him. She was like, I'm sorry, I fell asleep.
Yeah.
You know, I love you. Please respond. And I was like, that's a different conversation, but I don't know if people are ready to have that conversation. But okay, so once it happened, once he transitioned, right? Her reaching out to the family, knowing that he was deceased. So there is this, I guess, known statistic by Jasmine and I, because we feel like we are detectives at some point in time in our lives where, and I think they may have spoken about it in a documentary where people return to the crime scene. They return to the crime scene. Sometimes they even offer, you know, a helping hand and search for the person and like, you know, support the family. And I think they were trying to lead into that when she was reaching out to his mom and reaching out to other people, the baseball game,
in his memory,
yes,
but not in his hometown.
Yeah.
There was a lot, and I wrote down here. Bob Queen enters the chat because that's when she starts to talk about her friends or lack thereof,
right,
and her wanting the attention, even at the expense of someone else's life.
Right.
That's pretty much what she said.
Yeah.
Because everybody came out.
Everybody
came out.
And even though like they were interviewing people that they were like, oh, it was kind of weird, but I still, you know, went ahead and did it. And
Homer's for Conrad.
Yes.
That's what it was.
Yes. Absolutely.
Her text though, like, I'm like, it's something missing. Yep. Okay. Oh, that's what the parking. So parking lot granny called her 90210 looking bitch.
They kept finding this woman. I'm like, what, did y'all go looking for her?
She went off, and I wrote this down after I wrote down the defense attorney talking about emotion versus law. What she said, and I quote, "If I were on the jury," that's what she said after she called her 90210 looking bitch. And I was in here cackling, drinking my sparkling water.
Yeah, she was. But then I think it begs the question in past cases with the jury.
Girl, that's what I thought.
I was like, so
because what I've always been told, you always want a jury of your peers over a bench trial. That's what I've always heard. That don't mean that is right.
At all. Like, they're like, it's your civic duty. And I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want to be on someone.
But see, like I said, like, you know, my cousin was like, go. And the one time that the tree went, there was something very significant. And he was like, I was the one that was able to speak out, but you gotta have people on the jury that actually know. And how many people are going to research certain law terms? Or because I'm gonna tell you the truth, if I was on that jury, I'm like, damn, because even watching the documentary, I'm like, let me look that up. What does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
You ain't got your phone in there?
No.
So you just gotta write down words. And so the whole damn page is words that I gotta look up later.
I need to do my homework.
Not shit that I need to be remembering. But yeah, that's what I always heard. I don't know about you.
I just try to.
I don't know why I was having conversations about that, but
I just try not to. I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to. No, and I came close this year. No, but what I did see when they were selecting people when I had gotten jury duty was they were, and I guess rightfully so, very specific about who they wanted and who they did not want. And it was obvious. Like, I'm not going to go into detail, but like it was very obvious.
Right.
And the makeup of the jury that they had I would have fallen into that group.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. And I would have needed emergency.
She just would have been on standby outside the courthouse every day.
Because I would have felt like
with a shot. She wouldn't even give a fuck.
Hey.
Yeah, no. And
so I don't know. I think I might. I don't know.
I think, okay, so let me just say this. With the change of viewpoint and opinion that I had watching the documentary, I can only imagine what a juror goes through.
Well, but like, there's also a part where if the person is not likable.
That part, because her face wasn't likable. Damn.
Oh my God. If the person is not likable, okay, let me say this first, right? They were definitely showing pictures of her looking real smug, and then it wasn't until like she was, I guess, on trial where then you saw more of the tears. But I wonder, like, if the person is not likable in real life, is that something that a group of your peers can actually make like an informed decision about?
Well, they can't now because shit changes in the news all the time. Just looking at the celebrities charged with the same crimes. If people like you, they will excuse you from doing certain shit.
Yeah, so
that's real life.
So it's, I started to think about that too. Yeah, so we will be taking that part out. We're gonna start again. Ooh, I'm gonna have my editing cut out for me. Yikes. Didn't have much history about, when she was diagnosed with this eating disorder. Again, we are not entitled to her information.
No.
But we didn't have information about what, when she was diagnosed, if she was even hospitalized at that point in time, because that's pretty...
That part. But I think the reason why I wrote that down is because they began to say that bulimia, people who are diagnosed with bulimia, they don't usually prescribe Prozac. For them.
Right. And then if she was switched to Select at some point in time. But, and y'all know it's completely fine that if you're not rocking with your provider and you feel like something is off, it's okay to get a new provider, right? Because you want a doctor, provider, clinician who's explaining things and who you feel safe with.
And doing the proper blood work. Because before they prescribe, they are supposed to do blood work.
Please and thank you. That is all. I won't go on my tangent about lab work, but because you know how I feel about it. But if something isn't feeling right, if you are in a relationship with somebody, your child, and you notice that they go on any type of medication, not just the psychotropic, they go on any type of medication and something don't seem right, investigate.
Please, you can do that.
Have conversations, investigate. Are these side effects? Are these common side effects?
And if they brush you off, go somewhere else.
Right. Yeah.
That's important.
Because there are medications that are commonly prescribed to people, right? That sometimes some people have responses to. And it just means that medication isn't for you, and that's okay. But
anything that changes the chemical makeup and how you respond and react to things. I usually give the example of some people can't drink, or some people can't drink the same things. Their bodies respond to it differently.
Yeah.
Medication it's not alcohol, but...
Well, so can you take aspirin?
No.
Oh shit, neither can I. I was gonna be like, I'm allergic and you're not. Well, that was a bad example.
I'm not allergic to what is it that most people are allergic to? It ain't Prozac. It's not. The pain medicine.
Ibuprofen?
Oh, the real strong one.
I'm allergic to that too.
Is it P?
Penicillin?
No. It's do it start with a P? What is it? Motherfuckers be hallucinating and shit.
It's a psychotropic?
It's a pain medicine.
Oh, you did say that.
Cause they gave it to me after my surgery, and I was like, "Don't give me that." And I was in the MRI just spazzing out.
So let's go down the list of pain medications. Let's start with a P.
I think it starts with a P.
A Percocet?
Is it a Percocet? Because my brother can't take it either. It was one of the ones he told us at the party.
Pain medication that starts with a...
Maybe it is a Percocet.
I can't pronounce that, so we're not going.
We gonna go with Percocet. That's what
It's
we going.
Percocet.
Is it it's a pain med, right?
Is it?
See, this we don't prescribe medication. We just want to be clear.
And sure as hell don't prescribe painkillers.
No. Is it what is that? Is that Percocet? I don't know, but whatever it was strong as I don't know what. Dang, what is it?
Yeah.
It's a Percocet.
Well, technically it's oxycodone.
Okay.
And Tylenol.
Well, they gave me some strong Percocet.
What's oxycodone, essentially?
And I think that was it. But whatever, don't, I told the doctor, I said, he said, well, all we got is Tylenol. And I said, give me that, because I don't want that.
That's what's in it, though.
But yeah, it's something else.
No, oxycodone. That's the, so oxycodone is the, here I go on my, this is the, oxycodone is the medication that has had that lawsuit in the past because people were getting hooked on it.
I can see how. Because they prescribed me that for my menstrual cycles in high school. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But remember we watched the documentary on the... Yeah. Oh, shit, I didn't finish my thought. Sorry. We watched the documentary on the pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, with the lady. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
With the lady. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They changed the formula of it, but essentially, like, yeah, it's Oxycontin. It's an opioid.
Yeah, whatever it was, I was in the MRI like this.
You should have been.
And I was at Children's. No, I was in Hopkins on the children's floor, and they was getting MRI. So they was crying. I was like, oh, you gotta get me out of here. I was doing like this. I said, come get me. Come get me.
No. Oh, so it says, oh my God. So some of the side effects are euphoria, okay, constipation, nausea, no, but like it is a hallucination, delirium, yeah. So, this is a strong, but I forgot what year it was, but they were basically passing it out like candy. And that's what started that lawsuit with the pharmaceutical companies, and I'm a back away from my.
That's another episode. But yeah, so yeah, different strokes for different folks. Side note: these reporters, they should not be allowed outside and bum rushing people.
Oh, that's right, because they fell on top of each other.
That shit pissed me off. But honorable mention, Umbrella Man.
Yeah.
You saw my man in the trench coat with the umbrella?
Yeah.
I see you. I saw you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they should be allowed out there. It's too much. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
And they're intrusive.
But if I punch you in your face and I gotta go to trial,
right. Now I gotta be in front of the judge.
But you in my face.
Right. With your camera.
With your camera and your microphone.
After I said no thank you, no comment, and you're like, but tell us about the time.
All in my car.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So here's what is interesting. Because we pivot in the documentary and it goes to another police officer that's on the stand. And I didn't hear it at first, but when they asked the police officer his name, and it was Justin King, and then Dennis was the other one, I didn't catch his last name. But Justin King was up there and they asked him what was his relationship with Conrad. And the prosecutor said, objection. And the judge said, overruled. So I was like, well, why she object? Like, man, he just asked what the relationship was. And that's when he started to talk about when he was called out to the Roy home.
Oh, right.
And you saw Conrad's face. He looked like he been mugged. He looked like he been jumped.
Yeah, well, he looked like he got his ass beat.
Yeah.
I think that's a proper description.
So.
And they both did they both get a charge, or?
I think it was just Dad.
Just, okay.
And what they said was that Conrad was punched by his dad. In the police report, they said Conrad said he was punched by his dad, and Dad's girlfriend said he was a piece of shit. And was he arrested? Charges?
And how long had that been going on? I want to be very clear, because when I work with kids, I do not anymore. Well, when I work with kids, my thinking was like, okay, this behavior didn't just show up yesterday. So tell me how long it's been going on, when did it start? Because I need to understand it. Those behaviors just don't pop up. They just don't sprout.
And I'm going to tell you how I know. Because my dad came on the screen, and my clinical gut, I didn't like his answer. I'm going to be honest.
Well, it was vague. It was a
vague.
lot of words.
It was vague as hell. And he was like, I know what happened.
But you on screen, so tell us what happened.
Exactly. I know what happened. And what he said was, he was like, I told him, like my dad told me, you hit me, we fighting.
Okay. And that's a different episode, because I'm not going to get on that. Yeah. So imagine, right, your dad says that to you, right? You're already vulnerable. I think kids are vulnerable. Yeah. They're learning, they're navigating. Your father says that, who is supposed to provide safety, right? Supposed to, ideally. You said, what? You want to do what?
As a 17-year-old?
And I'm trying to figure my life out because I'm 17. And clearly I'm dealing with anxiety, depression, whatever else is happening. And so we're not talking about that piece.
It's balls to the wall. Yeah,
I mean, I think there are other contributing factors.
Yeah. Because in the police report, it said that he was asked to do something. I think take trash out or wash the dishes. And he said he was going to do it in a minute. And the dad was like, no, you do it now. And so that's when, or did Dad say that? I don't know, but it's in here. And Dad basically was like, pretty much we were fighting. My father and my child, in the same sentence, fighting. For me, I'd be like, okay, we need to talk. We need to talk.
Because how long had that been going on?
How long? I almost went a little too far. Because I also have questions about why the marriage ended too.
Well, 100%.
And Mom can't really look at the camera.
No. Neither can Dad.
Yeah. And I didn't know Dad was a twin. I was like, wait, didn't he have on a different shirt? Shit that most people probably wouldn't even have picked up on.
It's like so much to the story, and a lot of it doesn't sit right.
Yeah. There's one quote also after, that whole spiel with Dad. He says, "There's nothing anyone can do to make me want to live."
Right, and I was like, "Hello, ideation."
And they talk about the Google search history of his laptop.
Well, he told per the text messages, right? He told Michelle that his mom walked in, saw his screen, and didn't say anything. So it's like, how often had this been how often had this been happening? How and for how long had this been happening? Was it? Yeah.
So we got all that information, and then it was like, all right, we going to trial. We're going to trial now.
Yeah.
With this information. And it also made me realize that there also needs to be more responsibility of what we put out to the news. Because what was put out, now I don't condone what she did, but we not about to withhold certain shit to sway a narrative.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what happened. That's why I said, Nancy Grace, go away. Go away. Because if we put stills of your face, just,
she was on that
say a whole lot. And the wordplay game that they did.
Well, right, and I was like, wow. Due diligence, toxic environment. I was like, okay, wow.
But they were, who was the guy from Esquire?
Oh, hold on.
That's the one that really brought in the Glee correlation and whether or not she was living in reality.
Right. Hold on.
And they brought in Alice.
You said Glee and
Alice. In my head, I was like, Alice in Wonderland, because she's not in reality.
Well, yeah.
So while she's Googling, so she was obsessed with Glee, and the main character, Leah Michelle.
His name was Jesse Barron.
Okay.
He wrote an investigative feature titled "The Girl from Plainville."
Yeah. So Jesse Barron. He brought in the Glee obsession. So the main character's name was Leah Michelle, and her on-screen
and
off-screen boyfriend overdosed in a hotel.
Yep.
But it wasn't deemed a suicide; it was just an overdose. Right?
Yeah, I believe it was an overdose. I think he struggled with substance abuse.
Okay. So there was an overdose, and in the show they had a tribute, because also in the show he also passed, which is, I was like, God.
I mean, but Glee was around at that time where I feel like
You watched it?
At certain points, yes, I did.
Okay.
But Glee was around at that point where it was that subset of shows where some stuff was a little, a little risky.
Okay.
Yeah. Like certain things were said, certain things were done where I don't think now. Perhaps some of those, not the entire thing, but I just don't know.
I've never seen the show, so, and I still won't be watching it even after this. I'm not intrigued at all. But they were, they were drawing correlations, and there was another show where it was two terminally ill people, and her boyfriend was going to commit suicide in the car. And she called
to intervene.
The police to intervene. And she was quoting that show or movie. to him too.
So she was quoting Leah Michelle. She was quoting her what she was saying in interviews and in the show regarding Corey. Corey is the young man who OD'd, who was her on and off screen partner. So she was quoting those lines to him in text messages.
Yeah. And I was like,
word for word.
Right. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, he gave more, him and the psychiatrist for the defense gave more of a, what is it?
Totality.
Of both of them. Because he even touched on, the relationship was a little unhealthy. And it was verbally violent at times, especially on Conrad's behalf.
Well, it was verbally and emotionally. They were kind of enmeshed.
Yeah, yeah.
There was like this enmeshment. If one was feeling, then the other was feeling.
Yeah. And also, because they said that she tried to hang herself.
Yes.
And so, in my head, I'm like, so you're feeling this way, but I think somebody said it in the documentary too, you're afraid to carry this out, but then you have this person who's already there and attempted, like, what is, that relationship was just all like, ugh. Like, it was a lot. It was going to take a lot to comb through that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, they did a better job at doing that. The closing arguments.
That will piss me off.
You know what pissed me off? After everything has said, we got the suicide attempts previous, and I think you have the suicide attempts previously, and then you have the journals, you have the videos, you have the text messages. Now, Bob Queen didn't say this. Long Bob did. She said that Conrad was self-aware and he knew when he needed help. That's what she said.
I think that's a hell of a statement, because some of us do not know. We talk to people every single day about how to ask for help. And he was a child. I don't care that he was 18. That frontal lobe was not frontal lobing.
Girl, she went to the Bahamas to stretch that shit. Because when she said it, I was like, wait, how?
Right. How do we know? How do we know?
And because he didn't ask for help this time, I mean, he didn't need it.
Yeah, and that's not how these things work. Because he didn't ask for help. Well, yeah.
So while the judge is deliberating, because he deliberated for 2 days, we have other people talking, and Miss Red Hat.
That's parking lot grandma. They kept finding her. It's like she was like rolling by, and she rolled out over well.
No morals. It was just a lot of commentary. So when the judge comes back, her lawyer's face was fucking priceless. I was like, I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
I'm right there with you.
Because he was like, wait a minute.
And for the judge to say that everyone deserves to be void of emotion, I'm wondering how much emotion he used to
make his
decision. Because he broke it down into 3 components.
Yes. Oh, you highlight? No. This is okay. Wait. We'll take pieces of that out. Hold on.
While she doing that, we have another honorable mention, and that is the court bailiff. If some shit went down, I don't think she was ready, because I don't think she was paying attention the whole time. Like you said.
Yeah, he broke it down into pieces. I just wanted to be able to quote him, but...
It was June 29th, 2014 through July 12th, 2014. Yes. So he was focused on that time frame.
Right.
Where that's when she was encouraging the carrying out.
Right, because she was telling him, you could do this, you could do that, you can go here.
Right. So nothing before then. It was June 29, 2014 to July 12, 2014. And immediately after him being in the car and getting out.
He got right. But then they had that's the other fuzzy thing, right? They had 2 phone conversations. We don't know what was said in those phone conversations. And
that's what Barron said. He said everything else had been documented, the text messages. And the get back in the car was something that she said to a friend, and we don't know if she truly said that.
Right, because they don't have any
evidence of
no proof of it.
Just heard what she said. So that was she was reckless.
Right.
I struggle with that, I'm going to be honest, because if he got out of the car, I get it. He was removing himself from a toxic environment.
Right. And then the judge said that Judge Lawrence Momez, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, he was saying that at that point in time when he removed himself from the toxic environment, that she had due diligence to intervene because he was not safe. But we don't know what was said. They had 2 phone conversations, and we don't know what was said exactly.
So I guess the intervening would be to call the police or the ambulance.
Right.
Okay.
Call somebody, notify them, hey, he's thinking about doing this, or this is what's happening. I guess kind of like when we are doing crisis calls, but we're trained individuals.
Yeah. Yeah, she was reckless. And
she exhibited a serious disregard of his well-being.
And I think in the beginning, that's what they were arguing. They were like, she wasn't physically present.
Right. And
so there was no threat. If he got out of the car, he could have stayed out of the car.
Right.
And that's when Bob Queen was like, what's the Bob Queen? I don't know. Somebody in the documentary was like, women have, no, his mother said that women can have an influence on you. That's what she said.
Yeah. And it's like, so it said the court found that where one's action created life-threatening risks to another, there will be a duty to take reasonable steps to alleviate the risk. Where there is reckless failure to fulfill this duty. This sounds like the definition of failure to report as a mandated reporter.
You know how I feel about that.
But I feel like that may be some of the same logic that they use. And they said the court found that Carter's actions and her failure to act when she created that duty for herself constituted the reckless conduct. Because he kept saying that over and over, and I was like, okay.
So my question is, if she did that and he still transitioned, would she still get manslaughter?
But are they? I don't know, because this is an involuntary manslaughter. Hold on. I think it was 2.5.
Yeah.
2.5 years. It wasn't, obviously it wasn't 20 years.
Yeah, because, they called her in February 11th, right before Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
2019.
Yeah.
But I think what the judge failed to mention for me is that he basically was like, her actions caused his death.
Right.
And I wrote down none of the other factors contributed.
Right. I mean, I think there were tons of contributing factors. In 2020, Michelle Carter was released from prison after serving most of her 15-month sentence for the manslaughter of her boyfriend, Conrad Roy. And so following her release, she began serving a 5-year probation period, which is, they said that the terms of her probation would be concluded 2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's some things that I found interesting after the fact looking. So the court blocked funding for an expert witness to talk about the warning that's on Celexa, which is a psychotropic medication that they both were on.
Right.
And on the bottle, and it's also on Prozac too.
It's on Prozac, it's on Zoloft, it's on many medications. Even on, and I was on Accutane, right? It's on, it's on Accutane. Accutane is typically used for acne. I have some acne. But it's a, what do they call a black box warning?
Okay.
So I would go in and they'd be like, how's your mood? And I'm like, unfortunately, y'all don't know that I'm a mental health provider.
And y'all fucked up and not doing due diligence or whatever.
You ask me how my mood is, I'm gonna say fine every time.
Every time.
I didn't respond like that because I was like, you're not, yeah.
So basically what it says is that there's an increase of suicidal ideation, especially in those under the age of 24. So the judge blocked that and found it speculative and denied funding. And what I wrote was, but it's on the box.
It's on it, and
it's on the box.
Multiple boxes, and this is a known thing about some of those medications.
Yeah.
Right. Because when I was working with children and they would be prescribed depression, anxiety, the psychiatrist would go through those things and say, hey, this has a black box warning, da 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 da.
Yes.
So why wouldn't something that is,
how is it speculative?
Fact.
That's what I want to know. That's how do you fix your mouth to say it's speculative, right? So you basically said that the studies was fucking
they
lying.
lied. They lied.
But I found that interesting. The second thing that I found interesting is that there's a Captain Conrad H. Roy III Scholarship Fund at the Northeastern Marine Institute. Yep. And so the third thing goes in with the second thing. There's also mom and the family work to get Conrad's Law, where if anything like this happens again, it is considered a felony and you get a maximum of 5 years.
Well, let's go into it. So 5 years after that happened, there was somebody who was convicted. I'm not going to release their name. Please feel free to do your own research. But somebody was convicted of something similar.
You want to know why these are interesting to me?
Go ahead.
So this is why it's interesting to me, and it goes into what I've already said. It's interesting that there is a scholarship fund in his name and a law in his name, but nothing to support people with other suicidal ideations or who are suffering from anxiety and depression,
Abuse,
divorce, especially in teenagers and adolescents. Now, if I'm wrong, correct me, but I didn't see anything, which also speaks to their limited discussions about what was truly going on with Conrad for him to be seen by someone who also was struggling. That's all. I was looking. I was like, oh, they got a fund for mental health too. No, they don't.
Yeah. And again, this was tragic. And the conversation about suicidal ideations and what it can look like and what are some of those pieces, it just needs to be a conversation, and we're also calling that it's an uncomfortable conversation, but it needs to be talked about.
And I will say and this is me speaking separately from my co-host, but I will say I've worked with people with ideation. There are things that are not helpful when people are going through those moments, and you missing them and telling them how much they would be missed and how many people would be hurt is not helpful. No, it becomes about you.
We can jointly say that. I agree with that 100%. Because that's not the point of this. Okay, you can write that in your journal. Like
you definitely can.
But you're talking about somebody considering
and being in pain. I want to be clear, because it's not so much just the attempt or the follow through. It is, I'm trying to release. I'm trying to get some relief, and I don't know what to do.
And the pain is something that's not always seen. And I think that's what people struggle with, is that you can have deep-rooted pain that you don't even have words to articulate it. Right. That does, and other people can't see it. That doesn't mean that it's not important, and that like, oh, he or she doesn't have anything going on. Like,
right. Yeah, I can't have a will for you. I can't have a will for you to live. You have to find that on your own.
Right.
And I can't give you that. And I think that's also why people are uncomfortable having that conversation, because they feel like, well, you shouldn't feel that way. But the reality is you do.
You do, yeah. And sometimes people don't understand why. It's not for you to understand why. That's less important.
Say that again.
It's not important for you to understand why. It's less important.
It is less important. Because a friend of mine was saying, she founded this organization, and she was like, this woman walked past the table, and she was like, oh, I could never do that.
But that, and right there, that, and think about how many conversations that excludes. So it's a serious matter, and it's a serious matter that brings a lot of discomfort or other feelings. That doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be addressed.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always make sense.
Yeah.
I think as humans, we want things to make sense, and shit don't always make sense.
Very rarely does it make sense.
I mean that part, so there it is.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, yeah. Would you take them on? I mean, as a therapist,
I don't see kids anymore.
Well, I don't either, but I definitely would bring the family in for family therapy.
Yeah. Well,
if it's safe. If it's safe.
And who's to say that it was safe?
That's true. That is true.
I take it back. Yes. But I don't know for family therapy.
I think at some points I would bring in family therapy, because I think it's important for everybody to be on the same page. I would really screen who I would bring in, though.
That, yes. Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we think about like family therapy, and we think about couples therapy, and the biggest factor, is it safe? Yeah. Is it safe for all of these people to be in this room together and potentially go home together afterwards?
Yeah. That's important. Because that's a part of my my screening when I do couples. Is there domestic violence, a history?
Yeah, because if it's not safe, we don't know.
Because a lot of things will come up in couple therapy and family therapy.
Yeah. I remember back in the day when I was doing family therapy, and I've been like,
if it's at that place, don't say it. It won't safe.
Well, it was at 2 of those places, and it still
it
wasn't
was double not safe. Well, that's our true crime episode.
Yay. And you know, you all will probably get more true crime episodes from us.
I think that's our.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we had cold words. We have, you know.
I liked it. I liked the documentary. I got like 3 more.
Oh, I watched one. Clearly, I watched 2 in the yeah. We're gonna do more true crime.
Yes, and let us know, you know, how you felt about the Commonwealth versus Michelle Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Miss Carter. Okay, I'm out. I'm done.
Well, guys, we hope you all like our sign. So for the people who are getting the clips on Instagram, look at our sign.
It's your sign to click play.
Yeah. So we will see you all on the other side.